Now let us look at E for equal. Jesus claims to be equal with God. On numerous occasions, Jesus claimed to be equal with God in other ways than assuming the titles of deity. Jesus said to the scribes, "That you may know that the Son of Man has authority on earth to forgive sins, I say to you," to the paralytic, "rise, take up your pallet, and go home." Because Jesus just said to the paralytic, "My son, your sins are forgiven." To which the outraged scribes retorted, "Why does this man speak thus? It is blasphemy. Who can forgive sins but God alone?" Jesus claimed to be able to forgive sins. The scribes, understanding of the claim that Jesus' healing of the man are all evidence of his authority, and made it clear that Jesus was claiming a power that God alone possessed. Jesus solemnly claimed another power that God alone possessed, namely, the power to raise and judge the dead, when he said, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the hour is coming, and now is, when the dead will hear the voice of the Son of God, and those who hear will live, and come forth, those who have done good to the resurrection of life, and those who have done evil to the resurrection of judgment." Jesus removed all doubt of the intentions of this claim when he added, "For as the Father raised the dead and gives them life, so also the Son gives life to whom he will." According to the Old Testament, however, God alone is the giver of life, and he can raise men from the dead. However, in the face of Orthodox Jewish belief that God alone could resurrect the dead, Jesus not only boldly proclaimed his ability to bring the dead back, but also his right to judge them. The Scriptures, however, reserved for Jehovah the right to judge men. Joel 3:12, Deuteronomy 32:35. Another way that Jesus made claim to be God was by his statement that all men should honor the Son even as they honor the Father, adding, "He who does not honor the Son does not honor the Father." In this same category, Jesus exhorted his disciples, "Believe in God, believe also in me." The pretensions of this claim to a monotheistic people were evident. The Jews knew well that no man should claim honor and belief with God, and they reacted with stones in John 5:18. Now let us look at M for Messiah. Jesus claimed to be the Messiah, which is God. The Old Testament foreshowings of the Messiah also pointed to his deity. Hence, when Jesus claimed to fulfill the Old Testament messianic predictions, he thereby also claimed the deity attributed to the Messiah in those passages. For example, the famous Christmas text from Isaiah speaks of the Messiah as the mighty God. The psalmist wrote of the Messiah, "Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever." Psalms 110:1 relates a conversation between the Father and the Son. "Jehovah saith unto my Lord, Sit thou at my right hand." And Jesus applied this passage to himself in Matthew 22:43. Isaiah the prophet, in a great messianic prophecy, exhorted Israel, "Behold your God." Indeed, the great messianic passage from Daniel 7:13, quoted by Jesus at the trial before the high priest, is a text employing the deity of the Messiah. In Daniel's vision, the Son of Man, the Messiah, is also called the Ancient of Days, a phrase that is used twice in the same passage to describe God the Father. When Jesus quoted this passage to the high priest who demanded that Jesus declare whether or not he was deity, the high priest left no doubt as to how he interpreted Jesus' claim. "Are you the Christ, the Messiah, the Son of the Blessed?" the high priest asked. And Jesus said, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of power, and coming with the clouds of heaven." At this the high priest tore his garments and said, "Why do we still need witnesses? Have you heard his blasphemy?" So in short, the Old Testament not only predicted the Messiah, but also proclaimed him to be God. And when Jesus claimed to be a fulfillment of the Old Testament messianic passages, he laid claim to possessing the deity these passages ascribed to the Messiah. Jesus removed all doubt of his intentions by his answer before the high priest at his trial. Now let us look at worship, because Jesus' acceptance of worship. You see, the Old Testament forbids worship of anyone but God. In the Bible, men were not to accept worship, and even angels refused to be worshipped. And yet Jesus received worship at least 9 occasions without rebuking his worshippers. The healed leopard worshipped him in Matthew 8:2, and the ruler knelt before him with his petition, Matthew 9:18. After Jesus had stilled the storm, those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly you are the Son of God," Matthew 14:33. The Canaanite bowed before Christ in prayer, Matthew 15:25, as did the mother of the sons of Zebedee, Matthew 20:20. Just before Jesus commissioned his followers to disciple all nations, they worshipped him, Matthew 28:17. Earlier in the same chapter, the woman who had just been at the tomb met Jesus, and they came up and took hold of his feet and worshipped him, verse 9. Mark writes of the demonic Gerasenes that when he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him, Mark 5:6. And the blind man said, "Lord, I believe," and he worshipped him, John 9:38. Not to rebuke these people who knelt before him, prayed to him, and worshipped him was not only utterly pretentious, but it was blasphemous, unless Jesus considered himself to be God. The repetition of the context necessitate the conclusion that Jesus not only accepted, but sometimes even elicited worship from the disciples, as he did from Thomas, who cried out, "My Lord and my God," John 20:28. Now let us look at the commands of Jesus and the authority that they had. Jesus not only accepted the titles of worship due deity alone, but he often placed his words on par with God's. When he said, "You have heard that it was said to men of old, but I say to you." You see, it is repeated over and over again. "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Go therefore and make disciples of all nations." You see, the 10 Commandments through Moses, or God had given the 10 Commandments through Moses, but Jesus added, "A new commandment I give to you, that you love one another." So God gave the 10 Commandments through Moses, and Jesus gave him another commandment. Jesus once taught that till heaven and earth pass away, not an iota or a dot will pass from the law. And later, Jesus put his own words on the same level. Heaven and earth will not pass away, heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Matthew 24:35. So speaking of those who reject him, Jesus declared, "The word that I have spoken will be his judge in the last day." In view of this categorical and authoritative pronouncements, we are left with but one conclusion. Jesus intended his commands to be on level with those of God. His words were equally authoritative with God's words.